Our message has been from a business hotel perspective. If you're largely business, and I'm thinking Silicon Valley and other markets in the US that have been predominantly business, that you really need to diversify your client base. You feel the same way? What are you seeing?
I think absolutely diversification is going to be critical for every hotel to almost reboot their market mix and how they're strategizing. I thought the GBT study was interesting because go back to where it started. When they did that same study a month before the numbers you just quoted, you quote the May numbers. In April, the study found that 98% of their member companies had canceled international trips and 92% canceled domestic trips. So there's no question in April and May we really bottomed out. So to say that nearly half of those now we're going to go back and start traveling again, that's a good thing. But there's all these other logistics, if you will, that are still holding some of that back. On the companies want to travel. There's pent up demand there. There are certain sectors of corporate travel where people need to do business face to face. I mean, historically, that's how deals get done. So it will come back, but it's going to come back differently with those same overarching things people need to think about. One is their own health and the health of others. Two is going to be what's it going to, the financial situation of the company in this case, not the individual. And then thirdly, the safety. Now the airlines have some restrictions about middle seats and things like that. Some of that's been extended till September, but even that is fluid and it can change by country or by airline pretty quickly. So everybody's going to just have to stay on top of all these different changes and be prepared to pivot and be flexible and shift your strategy appropriately. And fortunately, in the digital world today, you can pivot your strategy pretty quickly and pretty inexpensively, but you got to have somebody steering that plan.
Yeah. So if I'm predominantly a business hotel, what kinds of things do you think I could or should be doing to really help shift that strategy and go after that leisure market?
Well, identify what demand is in your market. I mean, there have been some hotels, and some of this has been in the press, that have really gone into alternate use. I mean, some hotels are being leased out entirely or floors of rooms to college housing, because think about the ramifications of the college and university industry. You can't put 2 or 4 people in a dorm room anymore because of social distancing. So there are other hotels that for the foreseeable future still have first responders. That's not going to evaporate overnight. There's a lot of that business that's still out there. So what are other demand generators in your market or alternative uses that you can look at? And finding new demand generators is never easy. It takes some diligence from a sales and marketing perspective to identify and research where you can capture demand and get really creative. So I think when we're looking back at this 6 months or a year down the road, I suspect the shining stars we're going to see are the sales and marketing people that were the most aggressive and the most innovative and really came up with some new things to add to their toolbox and add to their marketing mix that hotels didn't know they could accommodate before. Some hotels are even leasing rooms on a long-term basis to office space that has to accommodate social distancing. So I think for some markets and some hotels, anything is on the table depending upon how severe the demand has been impacted in your market.
Given you're talking about, okay, some business hotels making changes or people kind of having to be fluid and dynamic, do you have some examples of companies, businesses that maybe took your words to heart or at least followed your prescribed plan and are doing well?
Yeah, I definitely got some feedback on that article, Tammy. You're absolutely right. I think one of the most encouraging calls for me was one from an asset manager that said, "Thank you for putting that on paper for us." Because asset managers typically take a bad rap in terms of cut, manage. I need to know my forecast and the ROI on everything from A to Z. But if an ownership group has the liquidity to do what's right, the smart asset managers know that the last thing you want to cut is anybody that's is in the business of generating revenue. And generating revenue is what sales, marketing, and revenue optimization is all about.